The IOPC, investigating the death of Chris Kaba, the 24-year-old who was shot dead by Metropolitan Police on Monday the 5th of September, has now said they will be investigating the incident as a homicide, or rather a murder. Now, the IOPC say that this follows its review of evidence gathered so far since the incident on Streatham Hill, meaning that the investigation is no longer one of a potential misconduct, but one of a criminal nature. Although let's not kid ourselves and think that just because an investigation is taking place, anyone will actually be held to account, misconduct or criminally. Chris Kaba was driving a car which is said to have triggered an ANPR camera with a firearms marker attached. Based on witness statements and police statements, it appears that 5 police vehicles and the Metropolitan Police's helicopter were in pursuit of the vehicle when an armed police unit rammed the Audi being driven by Chris. The Audi was quickly boxed in by another 1 or 2 police vehicles, that number different depending on who you get the information from, by the way. Armed police are said to have then pointed their weapons at the occupant and ordered him to stop the car and get out. Chris Kaba is said then to have tried to ram his way out of the police block, and allegedly after some 10 or 12 times of being asked to get out the vehicle, a single shot was fired through the windshield, hitting Chris. Although witnesses from the area say that they heard 2 shots, the police claim that they only fired 1. The IOPC later confirmed that no firearm was found in the vehicle and the vehicle was not owned by Chris. And that is what led me to suggest my previous reports that maybe he was driving illegally. But again, that's speculation at the moment. However, what seems not to be speculation is the fact that Chris is alleged to have tried to ram his way out of the roadblock, with one witness suggesting he was trying to run the police down and kill them. But I ask myself, if the police had boxed him in like they are taught to do, then there should have been a car on both front and rear bumper preventing him from driving at them. So yet another question that seriously needs to be answered. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan said on Friday night, "My heartfelt sympathies remain with Chris Kaba's families, friends and loved ones who are having to come to terms with a young life cut short. I fully understand the grave concerns and impact of Chris's death on black Londoners across our city and the anger, pain and fear it has caused, as well as the desire for justice and change. I appreciate that there are many unanswered questions, and I want to reassure all of London's communities that I will continue to push for these to be answered." Now, of course, anybody's death is sad, but in some situations where actions of the person who died led them to being in the situation where they died, must be taken into account. There's a question that's unlikely now to ever be answered, and that is, what was Chris thinking by trying to ram his way out of a police block whilst having guns pointed at him? Of course, most people are now trying to make this a case about race and discrimination, but I put it to each of you that no matter who you are, colour, gender, religion, if you try to ram out of a police block with armed police and firearms marker on the vehicle you're driving, then you have to accept at some point you're likely to get hurt, at the least. We know that the Met's firearm unit is full of miscreants, and yes, some of those are likely to be racist, misogynistic, xenophobic, etc. But can we really call an incident which wasn't made any better by the driver's actions a racially motivated murder, which, by the sounds of it, is what people are aiming for? I don't like the police abusing their powers or positions, but that does not mean that every single incident the police are involved in is a clusterfuck. I could fill the channel with stories which I could twist to fit a narrative, but I don't. Although some would disagree with that statement, bootlickers. The fact is, the police are involved in incidents every day where they do what they are supposed to do, and for those incidents I can't fault them, so I don't report on them, and I refuse to make incidents I don't believe are the police's fault a mention in one of my reports. However, that's not to say that I don't think the police fucked up here, because I do. But I don't think it was anything to do with race, and I would be entirely surprised if anybody could produce any convincing evidence of that actually being the case. I believe the police could and should have dealt with this incident without shooting Chris dead. There were definitely other avenues they could have taken. Could this have been murder? I don't think it fits the threshold for murder. Murder, according to the CPS's own guidance, is when a crime of murder is committed where a person of sound mind and discretion, i.e. they are sane, unlawfully kills, i.e. not in self-defence or other justified killing, any reasonable creature, as in a human being, in being born alive and breathing through its own lungs, under the King's peace, not in wartime, with intent to kill or cause grievous bodily harm. Note that murder cannot be committed by a company or other corporation, for which corporate manslaughter comes into play. Now, had the police not been chasing Chris, had there not been a marker for firearms on the vehicle, had Chris not attempted to evade capture and the police still shot him, then yeah, I agree, the individual officer should face murder charges. But this, unfortunately, is not the situation that Chris or the police found themselves in. Now, Chris is said to have been what they call a drill artist. If you know anything about drill music, as I know some of you do, then you will know that it focuses on crime and criminal activity. The King's College London said in an article that drill music can be described as a genre of music that connotes violence and typically symbolises stabbings, gang culture, as well as drug dealing. It has also been described as demonic and nihilistic fetishization of violence. Also, it has been a big part of the road culture that should not be defined with race and ethnicity. However, it mainly is associated with black youth, especially by the police and law enforcement. They go on to say that it is well known, especially among the British youth, that drill rappers are prone to bans, supervision orders, and incriminating themselves in their lyrics that can later be used in court as evidence. Of course, not everybody involved in drill music is involved in crime, but a lot of these groups are a part of gang culture and crimes. Let's not also forget that there are white drill artists too, before you start calling racism in the comments. We do know that Chris had served time in a Young Offenders Institute on a firearms offence, so unfortunately for the few of you who are claiming murder and racism, it is a fact that he was involved in some description with criminality. It's said that he had turned his life around, although we'll never get the chance to find out now. But his actions on Monday the 5th of September would seem to indicate that he wanted anything but to be spoken to by the police, which would likely indicate he hadn't turned his life around. Because even those of us who dislike the police the way that they are today certainly wouldn't attempt to drive through and ram through an armed police block. On Saturday, Black Lives Matter held a demonstration for Chris where Stormzy attended and said a few words, encouraging those who attended to all do their part to get justice for Chris, which I think shows the emotional thinking process rather than the critical thinking process that many people are basing these opinions on. As I said, he was known to have been inside on a firearms charge. He was attempting to escape police at the time whilst he had guns pointed at him. And that's really not the actions you would expect from a person who's turned their life around and got nothing to hide. I know a lot of people won't want to hear the current facts and will continue to cry racism, but facts are facts. However, you shouldn't confuse my own opinion with the facts, which I do try to make very clear when I'm sharing an opinion. Still, lots of questions. In fact, as I said in my previous reports, more questions than answers. Either way, another tragic loss of life that could have been avoided by both Chris and the police acting differently in a situation that they were faced with.